Hi everyone, Stjepan here. Before I start, I would just like to say sorry about the background noise in yesterday's video. As somebody pointed out, I think it might have been because of the power socket I chose. We have some electricity problems in the flat, and it may have been the grounding, but I don't know. So now my laptop is unplugged and I hope everything will be fine. I made one test video and the sound was okay, so I hope it's going to work. So anyway, today I'm going to go over rounds 5 and 6 of Lichtenrader and Herbst, the tournament I played up until last week. And those were the two rounds that devastated me the most. Before them, as you may have seen, I won round 1, drew round 2 in a better ending against a stronger player. Then in round 3 against a stronger player had a winning position and messed it up. And in round 4 played a really low rated opponent, 1500, and drew because he played really well and I played like an idiot. So rounds 5 and 6 were, well, round 5 was sort of crucial, and I faced a 1700 player. I don't remember, well, okay, I did lose one game against a low rated player in Gradište, but I normally will play well and yeah, have good results against them. So I prepared, I managed to find my opponent's chess.com account online, and then I saw what he plays against everything. And I prepared the line in the Scandinavian. So we have e4, d5, the Scandinavian defense, e takes d5, queen takes d5, he plays knight c3, I played queen d8. And now d4, knight f6, and bishop c4. And this was the move which I have prepared against. This is a move he normally plays against the queen d8 Scandinavian. And I had prepared this line with a6. Now a6 is a tricky move because it prepares b5. And the only way to stop b5 is to play a4, which weakens your structure. And if a4 is played, then black changes his plans. And after a4, which my opponent played, I went knight c6. And now, this may seem strange, black isn't going for his normal e6, c6, Caro-Kann Scandinavian pawn structure. Black is going for the control of the center and putting pressure on the pawn. Now the main move here is knight to e2 to make sure, same as in the Alekhine defense, a similar idea, so that black doesn't have bishop g4, so that bishop g4 can be met with f3. Instead of that, my opponent went knight f3, and after bishop g4, black is now almost equal. Okay. Now the only way to defend is bishop e3. I went e6. I also considered e5, but I don't think it was good. So e5, d takes, queen takes. He should probably take with the knight here. I think to defend his structure. I think I calculated taking with the knight, and then bishop takes f3, e takes f6, and if I play something like bishop e4, he's going to take and I'm going to be a pawn down, so I'm going to be slightly worse. And if I don't play bishop e4, if I take, then yeah, if this happens, this is why he played knight d1, then yeah, this is very good for white. So I didn't play e5, I went e6, which is safer, h3, castles, and now for a while I wanted to make bishop takes f3 work, but unfortunately it doesn't work. So if I take, queen takes, I can't take on d4 because bishop takes, and if I take with the queen, I'm just in trouble. Something like rook d8 and now queen c6 check, knight d7. It's very unpleasant to play, and in fact white should be winning. He can just take both of my pawns. His king is castled and I'm in trouble. So I played rook b8, preparing bishop takes f3 if he does nothing, and also reinforcing b5 in some future positions. He went bishop e2. Bishop e7 developing, rook e1, knight b4. And knight b4 is a maneuver that I have prepared, but I was aware that it's not the most precise way to play. So what I want to achieve is a symmetrical Petrov structure in which I'm going to have a better bishop. So in the Caro-Kann and in the Scandinavian, black's weakest square is e5, so the knight normally goes to e5. It's sort of an intuitive move that most people play. And when the knight goes to e5, I'm going to trade the light squared bishops, And if I manage to get my e pawn to d5, then my dark squared bishop is going to be better than his, because his pawn is on d5, d4, mine is on d5. So that's the idea behind knight b4. And he did play knight e5, takes, queen takes, sorry, I castled first. He played rook a to d1, and now knight to d5. And if he doesn't take, there really are no good squares for his knight, so he has to take. And when he takes, I recapture with the pawn. Now we get a completely symmetrical position, except that his pawn is on a4, mine is on a6. His knight is already, I'm sorry, on e5, mine is still on f6, although it could jump into e4 unless he plays f3, and f3 is a weakening move. And the difference, as I said, is that my dark squared bishop is better than his, simply because his bishop is stuck behind his central pawn, which is never going to move. Okay, he played queen d3, and queen d3 I underestimated. So the first thing I wanted to do is stop bishop g5, so I played h6, which I think is correct. He played bishop f4, I played bishop d6. And now still my bishop is better than his. f3, stopping knight e4, I think is not a precise move. He played c3, which is sort of a waiting move and solidifying his structure. I played c6, which is a good move always in these positions, solidifying my structure. And now if you look at this, my pawns are on light squares, so my bishop has a lot of room to maneuver. His pawns are on dark squares, so his bishop doesn't, and his bishop doesn't have targets here, my bishop has targets here. So my goal was simply to trade off the pieces and play a simple position. He played rook e3, which is aggressive, but I think I could have just played knight e4 here. And if he doesn't play f3, well, then his rook isn't going anywhere, so I expect he would have played f3 and then knight g5. After knight g5, he should probably take, because his bishop is not that good. Queen takes, I'm not afraid of knight d7, because I have queen f4 or queen g3, let's say queen f4. And if he takes on f8, for example, I think I have more than enough compensation for the exchange, because this bishop is a monster with this many dark squared weaknesses, and I would be happy to play this position. If I don't want to do that, after bishop takes g5, I can simply retake with the pawn, play something like f6, and have a pleasant enough position. Instead of that, I played queen c7, which is a horrible move, because it allows queen f5. And after I'd allowed queen f5, I completely underestimated his threats. I'm sorry, I just have to turn off the volume on my phone. Sorry about that. Okay, sorry, forgot to turn it off before the video. Okay, so queen f5, and now he has a lot of threats. In fact, I don't know what to do here. So his threat is, first of all, bishop h6, and once I take, he takes on f6 and basically wins the position with rook g3. So I allowed his queen to activate and become really annoying in my position, and I didn't know what to do. And of course, the correct move, which I had calculated, was knight e4. And after knight e4, something like f3, knight g5, bishop takes g5, pawn takes g5 is fine for me. He cannot take on g5 because I have f6, just forking the queen and the knight. So what does he do? Probably retreats the rook or plays rook d2 to e1, trying to reinforce his structure. And let's say this happens, and my position is just fine. There are no problems here. After queen f5, that's what I should have done. And I played a blunder, which just loses the game in one move, basically. I played queen c8. If you want, you can stop the video now, and it's almost white to play and win. Well, not really, but white has such a crushing move, after which black loses material. Okay, so the move is knight d7. After knight d7, there's nothing I can do. If I take the bishop, he takes my knight with check. And once I take back, he takes my bishop, my pawn structure is ruined, and he's going to checkmate me, worst of all. And I don't have a way to defend that. After knight d7, if I take his knight, he takes my bishop first, and I lose the exchange. So once again, there's absolutely nothing I can do to save material. Other moves, like another candidate was knight e8, but after knight e8, I can't remember the refutation. Wait. Okay, knight e8, yeah, bishop takes. Okay, and once again I can either once again I get checkmated, because when this happens I take, he has rook g3, and whenever we get this pawn structure, that's checkmate. And I didn't like any of the options. There was just nothing I could do. There was one more thing, the best move for black, which might seem extraordinary, but yeah, that was the best way to play, and that's queen takes knight, sacrificing the queen. After queen takes queen, bishop takes bishop. He has to save the queen first of all, so let's say the queen goes to f5. I take the rook, and now this is playable. I have a knight and rook for a queen, and his structure isn't that good. He doesn't have a pleasant way to save all of his material. Let's say he tries to do this. I'm going to be piling up on his pawn, and best case for him, he's going to be left defending this pawn, and it's not going to be easy. So that was the only good option that the engine gives. I didn't find that by myself during the game. I found all the other crappy options. So after knight d7, I played the worst move of all. I was so frustrated after knight d7 that I knew I was losing this position, that I completely missed that I just hung a piece on my next move, and I just played knight e4. And after rook e4, I resigned. Yeah, it's just horrible. Okay, so yeah, that was that game. After the game, I tried to forget about it, tried to concentrate for next day. And next day, I got paired against a guy I had met on the tournament, a great guy who approached me. He sent me a message over Lichess and said, "Are you by any chance in Berlin? I think I saw you at the tournament. I watch your videos." And then we spoke. He's a great guy, a physicist, and we had a lot of fun. We went out with Lucia and my friends that were in Berlin a couple of nights, and anyway, I got paired against him, and he's rated 1600. So enough pressure on me, because I drew round 4 and lost round 5. Now I'm playing a 1600, and a guy who I really like and who I know is really smart, and who probably isn't 1600. So I've been preparing for him for a long time, trying to find weaknesses in his play. His play was much stronger than 1600, and I chose to play d4 against him because I saw that he plays the Semi-Slav, and I wanted to go for an early exchange to get a minority attack, or if he takes with the c-pawn, to just have a better position. So what am I talking about? So d4, d5, c4, c6, knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, he plays e6, the Semi-Slav. Now the normal moves are either e3 or bishop g5. The third most popular is cd5. And now after cd5, ed5 is the main move, after which white goes for rook b1, a3, b4, and simply goes for a minority attack, weakens the c6 pawn, plays knight a4, knight c5, plays against the c6 pawn, and strategically is better. In the game, he took with the c-pawn, which is now immediately slightly worse for black, because he has a worse bishop than my bishop. And after bishop g5, bishop e7, e3, a6, preparing b5 perhaps. Bishop d3, castles, a3, stopping b5, because now with b5 I'm going to play b4. h6, bishop h4, knight c6, b4, b5. After b4, b5, my entire strategy this game is to play against his c8 bishop, and I think I played well. Well, I checked the game and analyzed the game. I did play well. So my strategy was to make his bishop completely dead throughout the game, and the only thing I wanted to do is to play against that piece. My strategy was to trade all the other pieces of the board, which would emphasize my advantage. Like if I'm left with one of the knights against his bishop, that would be a strategically won position. Here I castled, he played bishop d7, I played rook c1, he played rook c8, and now I played bishop b1. And the point of bishop b1 is not queen d3 checkmates, even though that's a threat, which I am going to try to play. The point is, I want to create weaknesses around his position. I either want to force g6, or something like knight e8 f6, or knight e8 f5, or perhaps a lashing out move with g5 or something like that. So when I create more weaknesses, his position is going to get softer and softer, and it's going to be easier to trade off the pieces. For now, of course, he can defend. Now, there was one very good move he could have played here immediately, which I was prepared against, and that's the reason why I calculated bishop b1 for a long time, and that was the move a5. After a5, this is under a lot of pressure, b4 is under a lot of pressure, so I calculated the move knight e5. After knight e5, ab4, if he takes knight takes b4, I would just play the move queen to e2, putting pressure on his b5 pawn and transferring my pieces to the king side. And I don't think I'm any worse in this position, something like rook b8, f4. And I'm fairly happy to give up my b4 pawn if I can get this position. There are even ideas of something like knight g6 or bishop g6 or g4, g5 or bishop takes f6 and then something happens on h6. So it was a pleasant enough position. If I turn on the engine, I have enough compensation for the pawn, it's equal. So that was the worst case scenario. I figured that if bishop b1 is played, he should play a5 going for queenside counterplay because this was his only chance to free up his bishop. Okay. Instead of that, he went for the most passive option, knight e8, and now I'm happy to trade off pieces, bishop e7, queen e7, I played queen d3, now forcing him to create a concession. A better concession than in the game would probably have been f5, just stopping this battery forever, and then trying to play for a5 again. By the way, which is now not as powerful because the bishop is not here, so there isn't as much pressure on my queen side. Instead of that, he played g6. And now there were two options. One of them was knight e5. So what am I trying to do? I'm trying to stop him from playing e5. If he plays e5, his bishop is good. So knight e5 was what I have played in the game. And of course, if he takes, then his position is just busted because his knight isn't getting into the game. It doesn't have any squares. It only has f5, but I think that I would just play the move g4 in that case. And yeah, something is going to drop on g6, perhaps even h4 at the correct moment. If his knight tries to make his way into f5, I can even go knight e2, knight d4, guarding the f5 square, and this would be just busted. The other option after g6, which was more aggressive, was to just play e4. After e4, he has to take, knight takes f6, I was looking at as the best move, and now I have knight c5. And even though I've allowed his bishop to come out with the move e5 eventually, and I have an isolated pawn, the a6 pawn is weak, and his king side is still weak, and the position is open. So something like a5, trying to dissolve the pawns, ba5, knight a5, and now queen d2 would be a devastating double attack. So something like that could happen. And e4 was definitely a good move. But I liked knight e5 better because I wanted to keep the position as complicated as possible, so that I could outplay him. I am higher rated. Knight d6, which is a very good move, coming into the c4 square, the only concession I've made with my maneuver. f4, so that if he takes on e5, now I can take with the f-pawn. Knight e5, fe5, knight c4, knight e2. My knight is going into f4, and I'm defending a3 at the same time. Knight b2, trying to trade off the pieces, which I was happy to see, queen b3, rook takes, knight c4, knight f4, knight d2, trading some more pieces, which I was once again happy to see. And after he'd played rook c8 here and takes, bishop takes, queen c2, the game is winning for white. Why is it winning for white? We have a position in which I have a good knight versus a bad bishop. And it's so obvious that the bishop has no squares that it's really sad to play for black. The only thing I have to do is trade off the queens, and my advantage is going to keep increasing and increasing. So he played the move bishop d7, I played queen c7, queen e8, knight d3 coming into c5. Queen c8, I have to trade, and now I didn't want to play knight c5 immediately. This bishop, it isn't going anywhere. Anyway, so I played king f2, king g7, king f3, and here he played f5. And now a big decision had to be made. So do I take en passant or keep the position closed? Because f5 is on a light square and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. So One plan that I had was king e2 and just marching toward the king side and playing the move a4. After a4, if he plays b takes a4, I'm going to take, and after a4, if he plays something else, I don't know what he can play, like king c7, I'm going to play a5. And now these two pawns are fixed. I can now march my king back to the king side and weaken this structure, eventually play knight c5, win one of these two pawns. And the other plan after f5 was e takes f6, which I had played in the game, which I thought was better. King takes f6 and now knight e5, stopping e5. h5, I played h4. And now he has two moves. He can either play g5 or king f5. g5 is much worse because I will just take and his h5 pawn will be really weak. He played king f5, which is also, well, which is a bad move if you punish it. If you don't punish it, then it's not such a bad move. So pause your video if you want, and this will be a long exercise if you want to solve it. Should white play g3 or g4? It took me a long time to decide, and I didn't see everything, and okay, I'm not going to say anything else. If you want to pause the video and figure out if white should play g3 or g4 check. Okay, after g4 check, h takes g4, knight takes g4. He doesn't really have any moves with the king, so the king is completely locked in here. So he should only move the bishop. If the bishop moves, I now go knight h6 check, king f6, and I go king f4, and my king is in the position, and I win. So that was easily winning. H takes, knight takes, and easily winning. After g3, however, I allow him to play the move g5, and what I had calculated in the game was just a mistake. So h takes, king takes, knight f7 check, king f6, knight d6. That's what I played in the game, which is just... ugh. Okay, so in this position after knight d6, the game is a draw. Why is it a draw? Because he can now play the move bishop d7, and I don't have time to do anything. Okay, so in the game I played king f4, which draws immediately. One interesting plan was knight b7 first, which after the game I thought was fine. So let's say he plays bishop c8, knight c5, and I get a chance to repeat. After knight c5, he can now play king f5, and I don't have any way to make progress. Knight d3, bishop d7. If I go here, he is in time to defend, and there's nothing I can do. He may even play the move e5 at the correct moment and just open up his bishop, go into an ending a pawn down, which he's going to draw because he has the bishop. And the move king f4, which I had played, is an immediate draw because before playing g3 I missed the move bishop c6. So the key thing was I need to take up space with my king, not allow king f5, and I also need to be able to play knight b7, knight c5, and I couldn't do both at the same time. So in this position I played knight c8, and after bishop d7 I can't play knight a7, I can't play knight b6, I need to go back. Knight d6, bishop c6, and now the only thing I can try is e4, he has to take, knight takes, he has to take, king takes, and now if he plays king g5, white is better. We are queening at the same time. I'm queening first, but in the same move, and my king is much closer to the pawns. So the only one that could win would be me, but still probably a draw with very correct play. If I manage to trade off the queens, I win. So if something like this happens, then okay, white will be winning, but black, I think, could draw with correct play. But after king takes e4, he just played king f7, and this is a draw. He's holding everything. I don't have any good moves. I need to play king f4. If you want, you can pause this and try to find something more active, but I thought for about half an hour to make sure I don't miss anything because I had enough time. I was 99% sure that it was a draw, but I wanted to check. So after king f6, king e4, king f7. If I try king e5, king e7, king f4, king f6, and we get the same position. I don't have time to chase this pawn. If I try to chase this pawn, he's faster. and the game is just a draw. So after 6 rounds, I had a horrible score. I was losing 25 ELO rating points. I was really upset. The good thing was that Lucia and 2 of my friends came to Berlin, so we went out and had some fun. I stopped thinking about chess for that evening. And one thing I'm happy to say is that the last 3 rounds I won convincingly and managed to get back into the tournament. So I managed to pull myself together, concentrate, and I just had 3 clear wins without any issues, which was a good thing, and I managed to save the day. So okay, I hope there was no background noise this video. If there was, please let me know. I'll try to fix it, but I don't really know how. I don't think there's anything wrong with my microphone. And yeah, let me know what you think about the games. Sorry for the low game quality. It's going to be better tomorrow. And stay tuned for more chess. Bye bye.